Marshall's Post Man Today drivers. It's all about track limits here. This is a circuit for track limits. This is a circuit where drivers get penalised for track limits. And there are a number of areas where if you get yourself on that curve, any speed drivers out one thing,
Hello there, and welcome back to some SP60 Championship Racing for 2022, and this time we're at the Rye House Raceway in Hoddesdon, just a bit north of London. Now, it's been a long time since being at Hoddesdon. Probably flash across in just a moment a picture of one of the last times I was at Hoddesdon was when I picked up my very first go-kart. Long time ago, a Stevenson chassis, which probably weighed about the same as me and the car in the Club 100 trim put together, but it was my first go-kart, and it was very nice indeed, as we see Andrew Graham absolutely doing everyone around the outside there. But yes, since then, Rye House had a rather lovely resurfacing. Some of the curbs have been reprofiled, making them quite flat and easy to take. Some of them still in their original state, a bit like this one here, where you don't want to touch that one because that will kick your car in all kinds of horrible ways. But so far, we've managed to make a little bit of progress in race number one. Wasn't the best qualifying. We sort of didn't really get a rhythm going, and I think our weight penalty here, just from being a bit too chunky now for lightweights, it was really hurting us coming out of the infield hairpin and the outfield hairpin, those two hairpins, one after the other, that we're coming to in a moment as we go around stadium there. Trying to follow Andrew Graham as he progresses, but we're able to go into pylon. Kart stays a little bit too far to the left, which means we can slot it down the inside to the right and take that position off their hands. And we'll skip forward again now to going through stadium. Quite a lot of close racing happening in front as we go three wide going into the Regis Elbow, I think that one's called, going three wide into there, and we didn't ever really have a chance to make a move going into either of these hairpins, because even if we could make the move, a bit like here, we try and see if we can follow Andrew Graham through, we just didn't have the drive coming out, and I don't think that's necessarily just a kart thing. I mean, who knows, maybe the kart was a little bit down in the low end, but I think, as I said before, just at this point, the extra weight that we're carrying around in those really, really slow corners isn't helping us, but we clearly didn't have a car that was too bad in a straight line, as we're able to get nice and easily up the inside there going into stadium, and we take that position for ourselves as we find ourselves now behind our mate Kevin. So we'll see what we can do going forwards. Again, this point here, it was just a case of trying to maximise our staying in slipstream so that we were in a good position later. Have a little look towards the inside just in case there's a mistake made there, but nothing doing. A little bit of a tap in the back, which then really hurts us coming off here. Not only do we get slowed down for the corner, but we get slowed down even more, and you can just see how much time we've lost there to Kevin in front. Really, really painful, and that took a lot of hard work trying to catch back up as we get up with Tom Eastwood. Kevin sends it down the inside of him. Tom runs it a bit wide. We have a little think about trying to cut it back, but nothing doing there, so we stick ourselves in behind Tom and see if we can catch back up. Kevin goes very, very wide going into the first of those two infield hairpin, which means we can slot it up the inside of Tom. And as we come out here, because we haven't been able to keep a nice flowing run, keeping that momentum up, he's able to keep it on our outside, which means he's got the preferred line going into pylon, and we just have to stick it to the outside. Come around the outside here. It's going to be a brave move going around the outside of the S's into the paddock corner, and we've secured it back off. So actually, yes, we do get the position off of Tom Eastwood there, and we go back down with our focus hunting Kevin down to see if we can catch back up to him and make a bit more progress in this race number one. As we know, wherever we finish in this race, that's where we'll start the next one, so it's not only important for trying to get points championship wise, but also give yourself a better grid position for race number two, as Kevin gets a bit too much curb going through pylon corner, although that's the Nouvelle complex, I think is the right hand, or the left hand of his pylon. Allows us to get on the back of him, carry a bit more momentum. Doesn't look to defend it going into Stadium Bend, but we don't quite have the legs to get it up inside of him enough, rather, to make that move secure. It would have been very messy if we'd kept our nose in there, so we think better of it and try to have another go. But Kevin makes that same mistake. This time we're able to make a slightly better run round it outside, but he's having absolutely none of it. and takes a bit more momentum around our outside, and that forcing us to get onto the brake going through the corner. We end up not just losing one position, but we lose two there. One place to Tom Eastwood, who was immediately behind us, and then another to Graziano Malavindi, who was able to there. But we're able to get one of those back as we come through, but we're not going to be able to hold it there for too long. Graziano had an absolute rocket ship of a kart in this race to go along with being a pretty speedy driver himself, and so we end up having to give a little bit of space as we go into the hairpin, but at the moment we're keeping him behind, and we try tracking down Tom Eastwood. We try putting it up the inside of him, but he squeezes our nose there, left just enough room for us, but we end up getting a little bit tangled, and I think we end up getting a contact warning in this lap, which is perfectly fair. A bit of a racing incident contact, but no harm, no foul. We're still trying to chase Kevin down those. We have a little look at the inside. It's more of a protection against Graziano behind us, actually, rather than trying to make the move on Tom there, because as we said before, we didn't really have any pull coming off those hairpins. So you can see there we've had to run a bit wide, which allows Graziano to come up the inside of us there, because we had to give him the space. And now we're not just chasing down Tom and Kevin, but we're having to chase down Graziano as well. We actually do. He's caught back up into the back of Tom. Very late move, but clean, no contact made. And we're able to get around the outside, carrying a bit of our momentum, and we're able to get up the inside, or around the outside rather, of Tom Eastwood as well, and see if we can stay in this slipstream of Graziano, who again got some good top end speed in this kart here. He's able to get at the inside of Kevin like we weren't able to, but this time we tried following him through. We're able to get the apex nicely, really crucial apex there at the end of the long right hand stadium corner. It starts tightening up. You miss that, you really hurt in terms of your pace that you can carry down towards this hairpin we've just gone through. So we'll move on now to see how far we can get towards the group in front. We can see him just going through the hairpin there as we're catching up on some lapped traffic. Now Graziano goes to the move. He managed to get it done, and we end up getting stuck on the outside here, going into the outfield hairpin, which really damages our momentum that we can have through that corner. It allows Kevin up the inside of us, and again he's able to carry a bit more than we are, and he keeps it on the left hand side going into pylon, which gives him the run into the Nouvelle complex as well, and that's him back up in front of us. Runs a bit wide coming through paddock. We're alongside him though, and it's a bit of a drag race now going down towards stadium corner. We're just about up the inside of him, which means we can take that preferred line, and then it's crucial trying to get back to that apex. Missed it a little bit, but was able to carry enough speed through it that we can then keep Kevin behind us, take the normal racing line going into this first infield hairpin. We absolutely did not want to take a compromised line through there because we were slow enough coming out of it already, and we can see in front of us now. We've got a group of three. Now I think Graziano has got past the two in front, which is Jack O'Neill and Javier Grossi Turner. I apologise if I butchered how to say your last name there, but we've got Javier and Jack in front of us as we try to bring them down. Now I think Jack in this one didn't have a kart that really allowed him to unleash his maximum pace. We can see here he's having to be very, very defensive, and there's still quite a lot of time left in this race. Now Javier there runs a bit wide, and we're able to put it up the inside of him, and we're now in the box seat trying to chase down Jack, who's looking over his shoulder a lot, which goes to show, yeah, he doesn't really have the kart in this one to be up where he normally is and where he should be based on his pace. Incredibly quick driver. So we need to take advantage of this. If we're going to have a good result this weekend in the SP60, we need to get in front of Jack, someone like Jack especially, when he hasn't pulled the best kart from the kart pool. So as we come around this last bend, he's able to carry a good amount of speed of it, but you can really see he looks over the shoulder and just feels like he hasn't got that pace. We're in the slipstream, and we end up giving a little bit of a bump along, giving him some bump drafting. So if he's going to be defending and we're going to be stuck behind him, we'll at least give him a little bit of a push so that we can maximise the speed that we do have, so we don't get swamped by the people in front. Goes defensive going into the infield hairpin, but he doesn't need to this time, as the race is neutralised by that yellow flag and another yellow flag going into the outfield hairpin as a tyre barrier was being replaced. Now Jack there putting himself on the left hand side, forcing us to the outside, which I'd have to have a big old overspeed there if I was going to try and get him into the Nouvelle complex. But we jump forward now going into the outfield hairpin here. You can see thought about defending it, and we end up giving him a little bit of tap, going a bit too deep, and we don't want to be overtaking Jack like that, so we wave him back through. let him know that we're not going to try and hang it around the outside of him there. We'll give him that position back because we don't want to get the position through bumping him along. On to the main straight now, and we'll see how nice and close we can be to the bumper. Very close to his bumper this time. Jack jumping in the seat to try and get himself going, and we're there bump drafting him along, trying to maximise our speed. Again, defensive going into this first hairpin. Didn't really need to be. Obviously, Jack didn't know this, but I wasn't really looking for the move going into there, but I do get the move going into the second hairpin. You can hear those revs dropping right down low. Really struggling to get us off, but luckily, seeing as Jack doesn't have the ultimate pace in that car, he's not able to get back up the inside of us. So that's how the race would finish there. We end up being 5th in race 1, which will mean we'll start in 5th place for race number 2. So as we said, race number 2, you start where you finish race number 1, so that's us there in 5th place, right hand side of the grid, giving us ourselves a reasonably good line going into the first corner. Although being on the outside, not terrible here. We saw Andrew Graham doing an absolute send around the outside in race number 1, but maybe not as an effective a strategy. The further up the grid you are, probably a bit better, and you're further towards the back and people are checked up a bit more behind each other. But off we go. We're behind Andrew Graham, in fact, going into this first lap. We've got Dante Dillon there on the outside. Doesn't get the world's best start, and Mike Philippou there already trying to stretch his legs a little bit and pull out a little bit of a gap over us in 2nd and 3rd. So going into the first hairpin, a little bit of bump onto Andrew Graham, but no harm, no foul. We'll both get out that corner absolutely fine. So just byproduct of first lap racing, you're going to get a little bit of a tap from behind. Now, just there you can see that Andrew really, like, the closing speed we had on him there was really quite quick and quite close. So we're already thinking that maybe he's got a bit unlucky and he doesn't have something to fight with. So already going defensive. Lap number 2, SP60 race normally. You can kind of allow people to get past as long as you feel like you can keep up with them. It means that you're going to run a quicker race overall. But no, lots of defending going into here. Gets sideways going to that first hairpin, which bogs him down. We then have to slow down and bogs us down as well. And then going into this hairpin here, we kind of have our hand force there where we have to stay behind him, otherwise someone would throw it up our inside. But in doing so, all of our speed, all our momentum disappeared. And whilst we do get past Andrew, we lose a place there to Fraser and Stephen. Fraser Bennett and Stephen Westwood there come around the outside because they were able to carry much more speed around that hairpin than we were, even though they weren't able to keep the optimum line. But they don't pull away from us too badly. We can see there Stephen making a bit of a mistake going through the hairpin, but as we start trying to get ourselves into a rhythm, we've got Jack putting it up our inside. We don't battle him too much because he had the move made fair and square, and a little acknowledgement there of him recognising that. So we'll see if we can tuck in behind Jack and see if we can use him and his good pace to try and trace down Fraser and Stephen in front of us, which we're doing for the most part at the moment. We're not able to, we're not glued to his bumper, say, and able to push him down the straights like we were doing in the previous race, but we are staying in his slipstream and following him along. So we might be able to close down this gap a little bit quicker if we were right on his bumper and pushing each other along down the straights, but for now we're keeping up, and that's the main thing. We can see if in front Mike Philippou, who's currently leading the race, is having to start defending against Fraser, so that is going to help us. We can see it there as well, the 3 of them in front really close together, and each lap, each corner, Jack and myself and Dante, who's behind us, we're gaining in on these top 3, looking for a podium spot ourselves. So again, you can see that little bit of a disadvantage we have going into the coming out the first hairpin, and Dante goes for a bit of a send there, doesn't make it work, but he's able to get back in behind us, and luckily, because the 3 karts in front are fighting a bit, it means that if Jack catches them up, we'll be able to catch back up as well. So the fact that he got away a bit there wasn't the end of the world, and we're indeed not on his bumper again, but we've caught back up with the 4 in front. Now, it's all going to start kicking off in this race from this point onward. So we can see Stephen doing a bit of defending, going into second hairpin there. That's allowing Jack to catch up, it's allowing me and Dante to catch up as well. And going through pylon, everyone's taking a slightly compromised line, which is stopping the people from throwing up the right hand side going into Nouvelle, but at the same time it means that we're not running the fastest lap, which we have to avoid a cone that someone else has knocked over going through the S's. But yeah, we're not running the fastest race that we possibly could do at the moment. And at this point, the six of us with Dante behind, we had a pretty good gap to the karts behind. Normally going through this part of the circuit here, you could see back onto the main straight, and you could see Kevin coming into Stadium, who was the kart behind Dante. So we had a reasonable gap, but that would just keep coming down and down and down as we try and make a move up the inside of Stephen. And we can't. We can just see how much speed we lose on the exit there. Dante gets past us, and I like to think in a moment he's channeling his best amateur dramatic society with that fist wave of frustration that we couldn't both get past Stephen there. But not to worry, we'll see if we can tuck back in behind Dante and make a better move next time. But yeah, because the six of us at this point, we weren't running our quickest race. We were all running compromised lines at some point, as we're going to have a very compromised line in a minute as we try and negotiate this lap traffic. It meant that Kevin was catching up, and catching up pretty quickly as well. So that was a bit of a worry from my end. If I was in the middle of the pack here, it wouldn't be so much of an issue, but seeing as I'm the tail end of it, I'm going to be the first person that gets caught up by a kart who's been catching us at a rate of knots, and that's going to give them some confidence going into it. It's always nice when you catch up on a group in front and you feel like you've had the pace over them anyway, as it's very messy going through the last part of the lap here. Dante being squeezed onto the grass there by Stephen. We've got Mike, who's in the middle of a Stephen and Fraser sandwich. We tried to put it up the inside of Mike, going through the last bit of Stadium and then around the outside of Red, but that can't work, which means that Fraser's got the better run of us, and all of that fighting, as we said, is just inviting Kevin to come knocking on the door sooner than we would want him to, if we wanted him to at all, which of course wouldn't be the plan. We want to try and have this battle with as few karts as possible to optimise the position that we can have at the end of the race. But as we go here, we can see kart in front is Fraser. We know he's quick, so if he's going to make a move, we want to try and follow him through. But as he makes that move on Mike, he's not able to keep that momentum going, and he gets stuck on the outside. We then try and follow Mike through, who's jumping in his seat, trying to get himself moving along. Can't quite catch up with him, and that means that Fraser can go back around the left-hand side, giving himself the better line going into pylon. And it's as you were, quite a hectic race at this point as we're catching up on some more lap traffic. You can see there Jack's got past, and he's starting to stretch his legs a little bit at the front, but we're well into this race so far, and you could throw a tablecloth over the top six, about to be top 7 when Kevin joins the party. Now, lap traffic in front here, I think this guy called Luke, who's very nice. We had a bit of a chat to him in the car park in between races. Really nice bloke. He's been doing the Club 100 Experience Championship, and he was able to get into this round here, but finds himself a bit unfortunate there, getting caught up with the lead traffic. Here it's quite difficult to know when you've got someone that you're battling or lead traffic that's coming through. So hopefully that's a good bit of learning for Luke there, and he can take that through and improve his racing. But yeah, that allowed Kevin to eventually get past Fraser and I, and he's eyeing up a move on Mike, who ends up getting a little bit sideways into Stephen. He has to go around the outside of the tyre barriers. They're almost 4 wide going into the outfield hairpin, which is not optimal in any way, shape or form. We're now on the outside going into pylon, which is not optimal in any way, shape or form. We had to back out that one lest we get forced over the brickwork and curbs on the outside of the track there, which wouldn't do us any good. And we end up losing some momentum going through the S's onto pylon. And again, it's pretty much as you were. Fraser, I think, was the big winner out of that exchange, as he's managed to jump 2 karts, and he's now back on the bumper of Mike Philippou. So at this point now, we're getting right in towards the tail end of the race. Kevin a little bit wide going through that second part there, which means we can catch back up. Stephen going defensive, and two of them get a little bit of side-to-side contact, which puts us right on the bumper again. Both of them in front have penalties, so even though we're running 7th on the road at the moment, we knew that depending on what the penalties were at the end of the race, that we could potentially move up into 6th and or 5th. So we come round the last bit of Nouvelle going into the S's, Again, you could throw a tablecloth over the top 6, top 7 in this race. It was fantastic all the way through, really, really good fun, and some good consistent lap times from everybody. But we crossed the line. Those 2 penalties from Stephen and Kevin in front of us mean that we finished 5th, and that puts us 5th overall for the day, and we got ourselves Driver of the Day from the Applewood Independent sponsored Driver of the Day award. So that was a good end to the Saturday. Bit of a longer video, but we had lots of action come from Rye House, so I wanted to get as much of it as possible. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a good one.